Tucked away in the northwest corner of Baldur's Gate is Silvershield Manor, and I built it out of cardboard. It looks particularly cool in the dark, and I wanted it to have a playable interior, both floors, which made the project so much more complicated, but worth it. I tried a mixture of techniques on this one to help with speed, and unlike the other dozen or so videos in this series of building Baldur's Gate, I'm doing this one for more than just fun. I intend to actually use it. So let me walk you through this project. It began, as they so often do, with double corrugated cardboard. Cheap, plentiful, sturdy. You know, one of my favorite YouTube channels is Blacktail Studio. This guy makes ultra high-end live edge tables, and the way that he talks about the slabs of walnut that he buys and sort of fawns over them, like, oh, this is a beautiful piece, what a specimen. That's sort of how I feel about double corrugated cardboard. Bought a new TV the other week, and it came with these two beautiful beige slabs, very minimal creasing, no warpage, and no water damage. Fantastic specimens. Anyway, the construction is all double corrugated with hot glue. For the foundation, I made it double thick, so that's a ½ inch thick. Now, the manor's main construction appears to be these large white-gray bricks, and not being in the mood to carve them and paint them, I decided to try out a print and paste method. I used Google image search to find a seamless brick texture, desaturated it, sized it appropriately, and printed it onto some full-page sticker paper. This is good stuff. I've added it to my recommended products in my Amazon storefront, and the link's in the video description below. Now, there are a lot of windows, and for each window there's going to be a window treatment inside, a curtain. Trying to make that many by hand in a reproducible and quick manner, not going to happen, so I resorted to 3D printing. I modeled these up in 3ds Max and printed them on my Elegoo Saturn II. For the floors, I also did print and paste. I made a texture in Photoshop that looks sort of like the source image, and did a bunch of simple math to sort of piece these together. I also prepped about 30 LED tails. For those of you new to the channel, I like to harvest them from Christmas lights. It's a pretty cheap source. Tear them out of there and solder on some very thin wire that's harvested from Cat5 Ethernet cable. And here's another benefit of the double corrugated walls. They're already hollow, and if you orient it correctly, the channels are already there in the correct direction. To get these lights mounted in the wall, I used a paper clip that I unbent and temporarily soldered to both leads of the wires, pulled it through, and then unsoldered, just like running a home theater wire. But I must confess, the tedium of this project almost killed it. Painting all of these windows, especially the brown cross-hatching, measuring and cutting out their holes, which have to be exact, prepping all of those LEDs and mounting them in the walls. It got to a point where I sort of couldn't see the forest through the trees. Luckily, I fell victim to sunk cost fallacy and said, damn it, if I've put in this much time, I'm gonna get a video out of it. And I knew that the fun part, decorating the house, was coming up. So speaking of, some of these interior walls have doors. And in my most recent video, the one immediately preceding this, we went through all kinds of miniature furniture, and I'm going to leverage that here. I'm not going to revisit it, but the door frames are coffee stirrer sticks, and the doors are just jumbo popsicle sticks. Now, looking at the underside of the first floor, I realized that all these wires coming out of the wall really need to be obscured. Also, the whole thing is kind of low. That stairway leading up to the front door needs a place to go. So I attached a 1-inch thick XPS foam skirt around the entire foundation. This allowed me to hide and train the direction of those wires, and it created an empty cavity underneath to hide all of the wiring and the eventual 9-volt battery. Then it was on to the second floor. exposed corrugation, like in an archway or the tops of the walls, I covered with cereal box cardstock and just painted it flat gray. Now the lighting for the second floor would be on its own battery, so I picked a spot where I knew there wouldn't be features protruding up from the first floor and attached a small cavity for that battery to sit in. Onward to the roof. The math behind roofs is a lot easier if you use an equal rise over run, and here that's what I did. I think I did 3 inches and 3 inches. And I'm building the roof out of graphics medium chipboard. This is the thick grayish brownish slab you'll find at the back of a legal pad, but you can buy it in bulk like I do if you want. There's links in the video description below. For rugs, I went back to Google image search, found some stuff I liked, and printed it, again, to that sticker paper. This got attached to some thin cardstock, which was then cut out and glued to the floor. Piece of cake. The furniture is a mixture of approaches. I 3D printed some couches and chairs, but I also used some of that furniture we made in my previous video last month. So again, you can go watch that video if you want. Then it was on to shingling. I was dreading this, but it actually only ended up taking me about an hour. I just used the method that has served me well for years. Cut strips of cereal box that are about 3/4 inch long, snip 2/3 of the way through them with some scissors, and glue them on overlapping with 1/4 inch intervals all the way up. Well, now comes the part of these buildings where I would usually agonize over trying to color match the source image. It's sort of a very warm gray, maybe a few streaks of tan in there, but you know, at some point, it's just a dark gray roof. It's going to look fine no matter what. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to do one try, live with the result, and move on with the project. And it's going to look great. I began with a zinc gray. It's just a bland, sort of leaning darkish gray. Then I took this khaki tan color and dry brushed it, a fairly healthy dry brush, and then a black wash. Usually I do 1 part black paint to 10 parts water. Sometimes I'll add a spritz of ink, or like if I have some Army Painter dark tone that the bottle's almost empty, I'll just chuck it in there. Sometimes I'll put in a drop of matte medium. This thing is a Frankenstein at this point, but it's a black wash. I mean, you can see the consistency it's going on here. It's gonna lighten up and desaturate as it dries. And as it happens, I got a really good approximation of the original image. Yeah, I'm super happy about that. These staircases go up and then split and go up in 2 directions. I don't have that much room in the model. I didn't pay much attention to dimensions to begin with, so I'm just going to make a smaller single-story staircase each way. These are just cascading bits of double corrugated with chipboard stringers, and I'm print and pasting some green marble texture onto them. And finally, the decorating. This was the fun part. Just all the bits I had prepared and my hot glue gun. I also made a happy little plant with a bit of fake foliage and a bead. This estate was regarded as the finest in all of Baldur's Gate. The Grand Duke of Baldur's Gate lived here, and he was a member of the Council of Four. This council was the highest governing body deciding upon law and politics, and the Grand Duke is the one who had the power to break deadlocks. At the peak of the Iron Crisis in the first game, Entar was assassinated at the whims of the main villain, Saravak, who took over his council seat for a short time until he was defeated. Entar was then resurrected and reinstated as Grand Duke. This is by far the largest building I've ever made, and I'm not sold yet whether it's worth it. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably skip the LEDs. They proved to be really not that noteworthy. But it occupies a pretty big space. It's 26 inches wide, and when I need dense city scenes on the table, this will act as a great centerpiece. I plan to use this as a home base for my group. They'll have some ultra-rich patron who's hired them to do everything and offers them his manor as a place to work out of. This way they can each take their miniatures and claim their own room, and maybe I'll even let them craft stuff and decorate the rooms further. Well, that would have been a good idea. I'll let the players create their own stuff and then glue it in there. Next time. As you can see, I have not reproduced this pixel for pixel or piece by piece, because if I had scaled this properly, it would have been the size of a city block, whereas it ended up more like 4 houses. But I tried to capture the spirit and the color palette and the art direction. It's interesting, in studying all that, I noticed how often they repeat assets, but you sort of don't notice because you're kind of far away from the action with the isometric view. And the desaturated palette tends to sort of blend all the background together. Like this manor has 6 or 7 fireplaces in it. It's a lot of fireplaces. There's also a particular couch that tends to show up a lot, and in other buildings too. Again, I have a dozen other videos ahead of this one in building Baldur's Gate, specifically from the first 2 games. Be sure to come find us on Facebook on the Tabletop Crafters Guild, and if you're particularly jazzed, feel free to check out my Patreon. Also, my recommended crafting supplies and tools via Amazon. I have a storefront, and if you just click through there, it's no extra cost to you, it just gets me a tiny commission. But more than anything, what I want is subscriptions. Something is very wrong because only 20% of my views are from subscribers. So if you like this content, please just subscribe. Don't do anything else, just click subscribe. Resource links are all in the video description below. Thanks for watching today. I'm Wylock, make things and play games.